Hello, everybody. This is Stephen Lurie with B2B Rocks. Today's December 15th. It's 6 p.m. Central European time. I've got on my festive Christmas scarf, kind of getting in the mood. I'm not sure if I could put on the hat. No, it won't go on with the headset on. Sorry about that. Any case, here to talk a little bit about SaaS marketing today. Looking forward to our guest, Alison Murdock. This is the second to our last show. We have one more show, which we'll be doing on Tuesday on IoT, where we'll be talking about what's going on in that market and why it hasn't developed like analysts predicted it would. With that, let me bring in our guest. Hopefully she's here and doing well. Hi, Alison.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I am well.
How's the weather out in San Francisco? First thing.
Good question. Well, number one, it's sunny, which is very nice because last week was torrential rain. But it is quite cold for San Francisco in the 40s. So whatever that would be in Celsius for the broader audience, I have no idea. I can't remember.
It's 40s, yeah. Not like 4 or 5 degrees, something like
Yeah.
that. That's starting to get pretty cold.
It's pretty cold for California. So yeah.
Well, good. They got a lot of snow, and California needs water as well.
We
so
need water.
That's great.
We have snow in Tahoe. We have snow in Shasta, and that is what I'm doing. Is I'm going to snowboard tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Cool. Oh, that's great. Well, listen. Be safe first
Thank
thing,
you.
and then enjoy the great snow out in California.
All right.
2022, which is quickly coming into an end. You've got your Christmas shopping done, right?
No, I have a list that my children sent me. They have everything they want is from a vintage store, so it's going to be quite tough. But so I'm not done. I have a lot to do.
Yeah, I don't know why. Didn't happen here. Odd. Let me just.
Is it somebody else joined? Cece. Yeah.
Okay, let's just push these people out.
Wait. Yes.
Or.
Okay.
We'll just bring you back because we really want to talk to you today.
Yes.
These other people are great too. Well, listen, 2022 has been a crazy year.
Mm-hmm.
We last saw you this summer in the south of France where you gave a couple talks at B2B Rocks.
Yep.
Everything was, all lights were green. Everybody was doing well. And since then, as an industry, we've seen headwinds.
A lot of headwinds. Lots of panicking. Yes, that too.
Lots of panicking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to bring you on. So I read a report. I didn't save it, unfortunately, but it was a few weeks ago that said that SaaSes who weren't cutting back on marketing were doing better than SaaSes that were cutting back on marketing.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of a bit of a red herring argument because I think SaaSes that aren't cutting back on marketing are probably better funded for one and probably have a better idea of product market fit and a lot of other stuff.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think the other type of startup that isn't really cutting back on marketing and kind of can afford to invest, dip their toes in the water are earlier stage startups. So that, I work with a lot of them and nothing's really changed for them. And I think where you get into trouble a little bit as a SaaS startup is the in between. So you have a little bit of funding at the beginning, you start to put down the foundations. There's really no risk because you really haven't done anything. Then you've got the later stage startups who have plenty of funding and a team, and they're being efficient and they're, being mindful. And then you've got this messy middle of ones that have some funding, probably maybe the runway isn't that long. They went crazy with hiring, they went crazy with investing, and now they've got to cut everything in half. And that's a really difficult place to be as a startup. And it's panic driven. And I think marketing, unfortunately, kind of gets the short shrift in these situations because it's a cost center. And secondly, the lack of understanding of marketing and how it touches every single thing at a company is also standing in the way of any kind of progress. So from my perspective, good CEOs, good marketing leaders are being cautious and taking a step back and actually digging into the numbers and the value of what they're doing and seeing what's driving what, and then carefully creating a simpler plan that doesn't require them to stop, but to continue in a very efficient way.
Okay, so it's really just being judicious and
Hmm.
going back and doing that thing. So it sounds like, if I understand, so earlier startups are looking to validate
Hmm.
and find their product market fit and make sure that's right.
Yes.
Later on, when they've been funded and they're in the scale up stage, most of the things have been figured out. So all things are go. They're still investing in marketing because
Hmm.
I've heard this number, the golden 40. Like, you want 40% margins
Hmm.
and growth numbers.
Yeah.
So they're kind of around that. It's really the people that are in between
Hmm.
that haven't gotten quite to scale up stat.
Yes. And I think, and I see, because, my business, I work with startups kind of of all sizes, everything from
Okay.
uh, pre-launch, really. I mean, I have a couple of companies right now that are in beta at the moment, but, have very experienced people. And actually when they haven't even launched, and I'm doing marketing work for them already. So these are people who've been there before, done it. They know why marketing is valuable. And then I have later stage companies that are like Series C growth stage as well. So I'm seeing a lot of things across the board. I think that where the companies that get into trouble, the ones that just never really invested in marketing soon enough. So they just poured a bunch of money into
Mhm.
programs and people, and they're like, oh my god, this isn't working. Because it takes a while to get, not including the time to build the processes and set up the technologies and the systems. You got to give it about a year for all of the things you're doing to work. And that the panicking is what I'm seeing with some of these companies. They're like, it didn't work yet, so we got to cut it. And that's just Silicon Valley specifically is pretty impatient when there's a downturn. We don't like
Right.
it. We go, it's like when I was promoting this, speaking at this event, I said it's like a snow day. Like, some of us go out and snowboard, and so other people just stay in bed and watch
And
TV
sulk.
and sulk. And I mean, the sulkers are the ones who are like, they're going to be kicking themselves because they didn't do anything. They cut it
Yeah.
all. Then now they don't have people. Now they've lost momentum on what they were doing before. So I'm not saying go keep spending money like a crazy person. Be judicious, as you said, but don't opt out, because it's just raw. You're setting yourself back months.
Are you still in, speaking of Silicon Valley, how is funding doing for early stage companies? Is it still on for
Yeah.
early, or is it been, I know the scale ups have been hurt a little bit.
Yes, yeah, it's the
Well,
messy
what about
middle.
the startups?
So the
The
early stage, there's a couple of things. I was reading a report too, and I think it was from CB Insights, and
Mhm.
I probably it's somewhere in my desktop. Who knows? But what I saw were two things. It's a bit of what do you call it? A barbell, bell bar. I don't even know.
Barbell.
Yeah, right. It's been
Right.
it was a long week. So barbell, meaning that early stage startups are getting some funding. It's not as crazy as it might have been. It's not like 50, a Series A of 50 million. It might be a Series A of 20 million. And then
Right.
um, some later stage companies that are proven are getting some funding for, probably some kind of exit at some point. The middles is where their, funding numbers are gone down. And one of the reasons that the early stage are still thriving, which is my focus area, and that's what I'll talk about most, is there are just more venture firms out there. There are a lot of emerging VCs that are very specifically focused on certain industries or certain investment theses. Like, for example, healthcare is one that's really, where even though in aggregate healthcare funding went down because it was COVID related,
Yeah.
specific healthcare initiatives, for example, women and children, that those types of things, or longevity, that it's on the kind of more experimental side, that type of funding is still doing pretty well. And so I think there's just more, at least in the United States, we still have, there's still vehicles to get money.
Okay. Oh yeah. I mean, it's interesting in Europe. Just generally, now I'm painting with a broad brush here, but I think things tend to slow down here
Hmm.
slower. Because we can't just cut headcount like you can in the U.S. I mean, in the U.S., we can cut headcount. Now
Yeah,
this is
you
kind of a
can't do
big
that. No,
generalization
it's true.
across Europe,
Hmm.
but in general, it takes longer to cut headcount here. So I think things take slower to So I kind of look at the U.S. a little bit as my canary in the coal mine. So what's going on there, I think, is very indicative.
Yes, yeah, and it's true. I mean, you guys have different labor laws than we have. I mean, the other trend that you're seeing, and I mean, affects my business, and sometimes it's a bit annoying, but essentially, I'm lumped in my business, Trusted CMOs. I'm lumped into that fractional CMO dog pile. And there are a lot of people now who are senior marketing leaders who have sort of said, I'm kind of done. And they're going out and they're essentially consulting. There are a couple of different flavors, of course. I mean, for us,
Yeah.
I've been a marketing leader for years, and I work with companies and bring actually other fractional CMOs in. So I have this what we're calling the Trusted Collective, pulling talent, marketing leaders in, and then providing tactical support that runs the gamut from every B2B marketing initiative or activity. So we are able to sort of jump into companies when they've lost a leader or if they had to let people go. So that's a really thriving business right now. In fact, there was just an article about kind of that the growth of the sort of fractional model. It's not just marketing, it's sales, it's finance. It's when companies, either one couldn't hire, never did, and it's decided to say, hey, we're going to freeze now.
Yeah.
But we still need to keep things going.
That's really interesting because in Europe they tend to raise less money than their American counterparts, and so the big hires usually like the VP of sales and the C levels, if they aren't part of your co-founding team, they tend to be pushed off.
Yeah.
Until like scale up phase. So that fractional model, and I guess it's just kind of distributed. People are hiring more and more remote.
Yes.
For kind of all roles.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a lot of vehicles to do that now.
There are.
Some of the focuses I've heard people. I know you've got something you got to get to at about 30,
Yeah.
so I'll keep an eye on the time,
Sure.
and I'll make sure you get off the call at 30. Okay. So as to combat this focus on revenue, and I know one of the things that's been coming up recently in a lot of conversations I had with different SaaSes is customer acquisition costs that keep going up, despite everybody's efforts to keep these down. And so a lot of teams seem to be going back with the challenges they're facing, really focusing on customer onboarding, impact, time to impact, and then growing the back end of the funnel.
Yes. Yep. I'm seeing that too. And I think, it's actually a smart thing. We should be doing it anyway, but it's kind of like, buying a whole bunch of clothes and throwing them in your closet and then suddenly saying, well, I don't have a budget for my fashion acquisitions anymore. So let me go into my closet and see what I can put together and do a better job of, putting outfits together or wearing what you bought that the pair of $700 boots, you're like, I actually need to wear these. So, but I'm being dismissive a bit of the concept, but no, honestly, I think that, one of the things that we look at in go-to-market strategy, obviously there's the top of funnel and funnel metrics for acquisition. And then there's, obviously closing deals, that's sales. And then we've got the third leg, which is CS. And a lot of times in go-to-market, we don't really think of customer success as the third leg of go-to-market, but really is. And what that means is exactly what you said. Like, are customers using the features we've built? Are they happy with it? Are they getting time to, the time to value that they expected? Are they going to churn? And are they referring, our product to their coworkers or in trying to get some product-led growth occurring at the company, or even their other colleagues in the same roles that they have at different companies. So there's a lot to nurture. And, one of the things I read, I think it was Jason Lemkin recently in SaaSter, made a quick comment a couple days ago that the cost that customer success wasn't as good as it used to be. That he
Really?
felt that some companies were kind of like doing kind of a quick and dirty, like, okay, I'm going to throw you over the fence now, and you talk to a customer person, and then maybe you didn't hear about it, or you got a renewal email that was like $50,000 more than what it was last year, and you don't know why. Like, I'll see if I can find it, but it was kind of eye-opening. And I suspect that will change, that companies will need to take a harder look at cultivating and growing their existing customer base.
Well, when we're marketed to, we've kind of got a veneer up.
Mm-hmm.
And once we've signed on as a customer, that there's no better opportunity to create an emotional contact,
Mm-hmm.
a connection with the customer than at that point, or with the prospect at that point.
Right.
So and I mean, I think the other or the other mistake I say a lot of companies make is having really, really junior people
Mm-hmm.
prospecting
Mm.
or taking phone calls, because you'll talk to this person and your first impression is like, they don't know anything. And
Is this from like an SDR type of thing or on a customer?
yeah, like
Okay.
a SDR role. And so I think it's a bad idea to have like the first contact to your company be someone who's so green that like they don't even understand your product,
Yeah.
or can't answer basic questions.
Yeah, I
Um,
would agree. I mean, I think, what we're touching on, both with what we were just discussing, customer success, as well
uh,
as this junior salesperson, is, conceptually, sort of a failure for the company to the company disconnecting product marketing from early in a sales cycle to the end of the sales cycle. Product marketing specifically, I'm calling out, is a very difficult job still to hire for.
mhm.
It's a very strategic job that cuts across sales, marketing, and customer success. And sales enablement, i.e., training, is something that product marketing is often tasked with. And sales enablement, maybe you might even hire an entire person dedicated to training both account executives and SDRs to talk about the product and ask the right questions and vet in a proper way. And a lot of times, what happens, again, it's an inexperience. It's a problem of inexperience. Is companies go, well, we need to follow the sales model, and we got to hire a VP of sales, we got to hire two AEs, and we need an SDR team. And they get all these people, and nobody actually spends enough time training the SDRs, and the AEs end up doing it. And that's okay, because in a way, for a SDR to shadow an AE and be part of conversations, this is how they learn. But I have seen this. I've been on the receiving end of those types of calls, and I've also seen it at companies I work with. And I think that is yet another case in point where, if we are cutting activities and spend a bit, then let's turn inward and see if we can really get our team in better shape, and spend time on training, and spend time on talking about the product, and enablement materials and videos, and really brainstorming how can we do a better job of engaging prospects.
um, it's really interesting because I read someone who wrote that marketing basically is kind of becoming a little bit the junk bin of the SaaS industry. And it's like, if it's not pure sales, if it's not pure finance, if it's not pure everything else, it's kind of been thrown into marketing.
Mhm.
And so they were saying customer success often is put under the auspice of marketing or sales
Mhm.
or whatever like that. Do you think marketing's getting too big? Do you think our focus, the butter's getting spread too thin over the
I've
toast?
I've always thought that marketing gets that kind of junk bin treatment, because it sales has got one goal. Well, they've got a couple goals, but it's like, it's
Yeah,
closing.
yeah, yeah,
Customer success it's murky, right? And so,
yeah,
and marketing, even if you have an entire customer success department, I can tell you right now, marketing's got 20% of the work that they're doing that has to serve customer success. Oh, can we have this template so we can show customers this? Oh, can we have a conference? Oh, can we have this education thing, and can you guys write it and edit it? I mean,
yeah.
it's like, and as marketing leaders, we're like, a lot of times it's exciting to be able to start up and build all these things and get the engagement and be part of a team that does it. But at some point we have to say no, or like, we don't have the resources. The flip side of the problem is that marketing traditionally has not, been either respected or understood. So we don't often get the resources. So we're running ragged. So yes, marketing teams are spread too thin. Yes, they're touching too many things. Question is, what can you do about it? So, I am part of a group of CMOs, this empowered CMO network. Sixth Sense kind of started it. I used to work at Sixth Sense back in the old days, and this is a frequent conversation, and to the point where instead of calling oneself a marketer, um, or a chief marketing officer, we called ourselves a chief market officer. Losing the ER meant we're losing all this doing that we're expected to do, and
Yeah.
all this, where it's become, that's what creates the junk pile. Market is important because what our job really is to create a market for the company and the
Yeah.
product. And that's what I think we have to sort of get back to. And, I've worked with so many amazing marketing, market leaders over the years.
Right.
And, one specific, I'll, shout out to Mary Sheehan, who's just published a book on product marketing. We've worked together at two companies, and I have always respected her ability as a product marketer to listen and say, that's a great idea, and also to say no in a very graceful way because the resources just weren't there. And that's what we have to learn to do.
I'd
Yeah.
hard to say no to when you're seen, like if you're kind of mid-level and it's
Yeah,
so hard
it's
to say
so hard to
no.
say no, but it's how you deliver it. You say like,
Yeah.
I love, yes, we making a new video to train sales is a great idea. What do you have in mind? What's your time frame? Something like, I need it this week and I need it to be like, with 10 customers. That's going to be a no. That's just not possible.
Well,
Or you say, hey, we'll hire an agency that's going to cost $50,000. Do you have that budget? They
no, they don't. No.
don't.
Gotta ask for 100 and then
Yeah,
go to 50. You might get it,
yeah.
but if you start out at 50, there's no way. What's the worst panic? Have you seen? You mentioned panic.
Mhm.
Have you seen anybody really panic? Have you seen people like? Have you seen a bad panic yet?
Um, Not really. I
Can
mean,
you tell us about it without ripping the client?
no, no, no. I mean, yeah, I've seen a couple, and they were coming into sort of last fall, and they were.
Yeah,
I think they were pretty early stage. They were in over their heads, and I get it. Like
yeah,
they just had too much of. Where noticed the most panic, to be honest, was the venture capitalists. And I think look, I've worked with VCs my entire career. Nothing against them
yeah,
personally. It is their job to say, we're seeing red flags down the road,
yeah,
yeah, everything. And it sends portfolio companies into a tailspin. And so I think it's like, and then they all have to now write about it because you can't just read Mark Suster. You have to like read somebody else from Sequoia's got to come out, and then, they all
yeah. They're all positioning
they're
on
all
this.
positioning on it. And it's fine, but portfolio companies are beholden to them and they get confused about, well, what are we supposed to do with this? Somebody on your board says you got to stop spending. Like they don't even, I mean, they see the numbers and the metrics, but they don't know the whole story. So that's where I was seeing the source of the panic and seeing, like like people panicking is my board called me, that's what I
Yeah.
saw, or my board member called me.
Well, you bring up a really good point with this.
Mhm,
So VCs, you're right.
mhm.
So we just got a couple more minutes
Yeah,
here,
of
so I'll
course,
make
no.
best use like again of this time. But VCs, like I read people like as things started, and they're like, companies need to focus on the fundamentals,
Mhm.
and I'm like, that's a good idea for any company, anytime.
Yes. Because what
So
are they doing
thanks for
otherwise?
the
Thanks. Thanks for
yeah,
the thanks,
yeah. I
Captain
mean,
Obvious. Yeah, that was great.
okay, no more parties, guys, get to work.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting, and also this is my third kind of time in this.
Mhm.
So I was around in 2001
Mhm.
and 2000 when all like the .com
Sure.
companies, the dot bombed, and I remember like investors, they gave 200 million to like petfood.com, and so I kind of feel like investors are their own
Oh,
worst
yeah.
enemy
Oh,
too.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I've been through a few myself, through, I
Huh.
probably one of the parts of that, the .com. I worked at Red Herring magazine back in the old days when it was like
Ooh.
crazy, right?
Yeah.
97 through
That's
2000, and
awesome.
it couldn't get any. It was like 1929. It's sanity. And I think it is, yes, people were giving money to companies that weren't viable, or like just an idea, and that still happens. By the way, I heard anecdotally a story about that. Somebody said they got a bunch of funding and they didn't even have a product yet. These were just people who are known entrepreneurs, and they're like, oh, they'll be able to pull it off. Here's $10 million. This was like a couple months ago. So
Yeah.
that behavior hasn't died out. But I think that you know generally I feel that a time like this is one of the best times to start a company. And the
Yeah.
point that I made earlier, which is the early stage guys are like, they're just like trying to execute, trying to build their product, do the research on their ideal customer profiles, in beta with their products, launching at the right show that where their customers are going to be, doing things judiciously. Every business I've ever started, and this is my fourth business, was during a downturn. Every single one.
That's interesting. And it's also a better time to hire
Yes.
people. You can negotiate better and
Hmm.
you get better quality for the money you
Yeah.
spend. So every time I've seen like these downturns, there's usually been a ton of great
Hmm.
companies that have been spun up like 2 to 3
Yeah.
years later on. So that's great. Well, listen, I don't want to take too much of your time. Just one last question
Yeah.
about the
Sure.
VCs. I'm wondering, are the VCs going to have a shakeout? Are there going to be fewer VCs at the end of this?
Well,
Um,
it's I'm kind of trying to in my mind think through. VCs tend to, they have to raise funds, right? They have to go
money,
to
yeah.
limited partners and raise money. There's a great conference that's it's invite only, really, for LPs and certain emerging funds called Raise.
Yeah.
I'm friendly with them, and they published some really interesting data about what kinds of funds are getting funded from limited partners and what areas are trending. And we have a long horizon with VC, 7-ish years,
Yeah.
5 to 7 years. So one of the research points that I found was really interesting is first funds tend to outperform sometimes funds 2 and 3. And that's because maybe the amounts are smaller, the companies are building. So it's hard to say, whether there'll be a shakeout, because first funds are a bit risky if you don't.
Beginner's luck.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard. You won't know until until you do the
Right.
analysis later. But um, I don't know. I think investors that don't have a good, hunting crew to find great companies, and they might struggle a little bit, but also like companies may need money. So it's probably too early to tell. Give it a couple of years and see, what the shakeout will be. We had an enormous number of emerging funds come to fruition over the last couple of years. So we're going to need to look at, how they performed, and then if they've raised fund 2 or so, what that looks like. Yeah.
All right, that's really
Hmm.
interesting. Listen, her name is Alison Murdock. Her company is TrustedCMO. She's the co-founder and also the CMO. I highly
I'm
recommend you
the
check out
only
her LinkedIn.
founder, not a co-founder.
Oh, she's the only founder. I'm sorry. Oops.
Just kidding.
Um, I highly recommend you check out her LinkedIn profile. She posts lots of interesting stuff, including job postings for marketing roles. And I think she had a VP of marketing and a product marketing role up there today. So check out her profile up there. And if you have marketing questions, she's got the
Oh,
answers.
good.
Um, thank you very much,
Thank
Allison.
you.
And if I'm not mistaken, you play the bass,
I
right?
do. I'm a little rusty though. I haven't been playing for a while, but
All right.
I'm getting back into it in January. I'm going to join a fun little band. So,
We got to start the B2B Rocks
yeah,
band. All
yeah.
right. Keep going. Do your thing.
Okay. Great to talk
Have a
to
great
you.
day.
Thank
Bye bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Uh, on here. She's so much fun. She's really interesting. I think that's one of the great things about working in technology is talking with these people, getting a chance to meet them, and there's so many interesting, intelligent people. Um, and if they don't agree with you, they'll absolutely tell you they don't agree with you. No one's got their they say French say long in their poche, their tongue in their pocket. Any case, this is the second last show before 2023. Hopefully you've got your Christmas list done. Hopefully you're feeling good. Our last show is coming up on Tuesday, so December 20th, same time, 6 p.m. And we're going to talk about IoT. Really interesting market. I used to work in IoT. People came out with these projections that, there's going to be, billions of devices. Hasn't happened. So we're going to talk with someone who's really active in this marketplace and posts a lot of content that's really interesting, has a lot of interesting ideas. So Afzal Mangal. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. I know Afzal is pretty good, but the last name might be wrong. So we'll talk with him on Tuesday. It should be a really interesting conversation. There's a guy who has pretty good opinions. Always has something funny to say about this market. Listen, have a great Thursday, have a great Friday, and have a great weekend. And Christmas is right around the corner. And see you on Tuesday. Bye-bye.